All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the last session. Can't believe it's the last session already of the Rubin 2020 Project and Community Workshop. In case you hadn't noticed, we had about 700 registered participants by the end of the meeting. We kind of got 100 during the week from somewhere. Each and every one of you made this meeting a success, so thank you. And thanks for bearing with us through technical issues, which we did have a few of, and logistical issues, just doing our best. So the purpose of this last session is to have all the sessions wrapped up in a kind of report out. And so what we have is a slide for each breakout session that took place. And one person from each of those sessions is going to talk to their slide. So hopefully you can all see my slides clearly. So if you know that your slide is coming up, please unmute yourself, go on camera if you wish, and talk to your slide. Melissa.
I'm here, but I don't see...
You're not seeing my screen?
No.
All right, you're going to bear with me for another technical difficulty then. Shoot. Melissa, I'm sorry. I think you, as my backup, you might have to, to take on.
That is okay.
I was having problems before we started.
There it is. Oh, it's Melissa.
It's Melissa. Sorry about that.
Okay, and we should be looking at the intro to Ruben slide. Can Greg Medeski please, oh, Randall, can you nod? You're the only face I see. You're nodding. Yes, okay, good, we're good to go. Okay. Yeah, so the intro to Ruben session was on Monday at 10:30. And we had representatives from across the project make introductory slides about their subsystem with a focus mostly on jargon and terms to really try to onboard and give people who are new to Ruben the tools they need to participate in all the sessions and sort of understand terms. And so we discussed of the project as an overview, communications method, what happens at the project and community workshop, and then we heard from all of the representatives of the subsystem. We talked a little bit about onboarding resources for new project staff, and then we heard from a little bit about an overview of what the science collaborations are and what they do. So if you're new to Ruben at all, you might like to go through those slides and look at the terms. And here on this slide, I've pointed out a bunch of additional resources that are linked from the session webpage from the Intro to Ruben, including a glossary and acronyms where you can look up terms, things that you encounter that you don't know. One second. There we go. Next.
Okay, so I'll speak to the algorithm session. So we had a Q&A follow-up focused around image processing algorithms in data management. And I'll use this as a chance also to advertise one more time that all the talks for the algorithms workshop are posted online and are a great resource for getting up to speed and for really understanding a lot of the cutting edge aspects of image processing. And this is sort of a follow on to those sessions, so you should check those out if you haven't already. We discussed a pretty wide range of topics in the Q&A. A lot of the answers are posted in the slides, and a lot of questions that came up spontaneously are in the video also, so you can catch that there. This was the last formal component of the algorithms workshop, and so we hope that together this has all sort of jump-started some deeper investigations into the topics discussed. And I know that I've seen a lot of that happening in the other sessions in this meeting, and so I've seen a lot of great image analysis talks, and we encourage people to follow up on those discussions on community.lsst.org. And so just lastly, thanks to the DM team for all the work in putting this together, and thanks to the community for bringing all of your expertise and ideas and questions to make this a really useful discussion.
So also on Monday at 12 p.m., we had a session titled Community Support for Science. And in this session, we described how during operations, the Rubin Observatory community engagement team will provide support for the data rights communities to enable groundbreaking science with Rubin Observatory data products and services. And the vision here for the CET includes a variety of methods that we covered in this session, such as providing resources like tutorials and documentation, supporting the science collaborations and Noir Lab as they in turn support LSST science. We talked about coordinating how the CET will coordinate Ruben and community expertise to resolve emergent issues as they come up during operations, and that they will do this by, for example, soliciting input from the science collaborations and project staff and LSST data users to work towards solutions and new developments, for example, in the science platform. And we also talked about curating online forums for crowdsourced problem solving and collaborative work. And in particular, we talked a lot about the community forum, community.lsst.org, and how to use it, what's a category, how do you make a post, how do you interact. We covered all that kind of stuff in that session. And really, we wanted to emphasize that the CET is very new, and we want to leverage the depth of our community's expertise in our plans for Ruben and community support. So we have this survey here, which we would love to hear your feedback, your past experiences about getting support from other facilities and what you expect for the future, and especially your experiences using the community forum.
Okay, for the external synergy session, we had an interactive Q&A panel with members, representatives from surveys that will be synergistic with Ruben in the future, and discuss ways that we can combine the data to really maximize the science returns. We did ask several representatives from DESI, Euclid, the Roman Space Telescope, and upcoming CMB surveys to create some preview material. So if you want to see quick summaries of the complementary science that may be possible with those surveys, check out the session page. Those talks are available to view. We had a wide-ranging discussion on many subjects, given the many combinations of surveys and data. There's a summary of the topics that we covered in the session slides, also available from the session page. We discussed simulations extensively, as simulations will be key to understanding the ways that we can combine the data and make sure we can actually utilize the data in an optimal way. Some of the specifics were multi-wavelength SED modeling and having consistent models over a wide wavelength range covered by the multiple surveys. Early communication and planning will be key in this, making sure that we are communicating, utilizing common simulations, common frameworks, and making sure that the data will be interoperable. We discussed a lot of other subjects, data structures, funding, real-time alerts and how you coordinate them, and even specifically observations of the galactic bulge. Probably a bit due to the subject expertise of the co-chairs, this discussion tended to skew a bit towards cosmology, and it was hard to cover all of the topics. One thing that came up repeatedly, though, was the ways of coordinating multi-survey coordination of time domain science. And I think that came up often enough that it might be good to think about a dedicated session in the future, either in the coming year or at next year's PCW. So yeah, check out the preview materials and the notes on the discussion on the session page.
Pat, do you want to speak to this? I can, if you prefer.
I think Melissa put it together, so whoever put the slide together should speak to it, I think.
So I probably talked to Melissa earlier that asked one of us to talk about it, so I can. But really, most of the work was done by Pat and Melissa. But this was the Rubin Research Bites session where we wanted to hear about the science that the entire Rubin community is doing. So we set it up sort of as a flash docs, posters, type of thing, in the sense that we wanted a lot of, to enable a lot of people to speak. So we had 40 flash talks by speakers, 3 minutes. The speakers were split into sort of affinity rooms of about 4 speakers. So topics that were the camera, cosmology, dark matter, low surface brightness, deep imaging technology and data access, galaxy morphology, minimizing systematics, survey strategy and solar system science, transients and classification, AGN and microlensing, and supernova science. So those were the 10 topics. Each room had about 4 people, with some exceptions. And 10 rooms leads to 20 chairs that chaired and moderated the sessions. So thank you so much to all that volunteered and agreed to do that. And I think it allowed a good amount of space for interaction with the short talks followed by a Q&A format. We welcome your feedback on the format that we designed. It was inspired by some things, but inherently it was our own design. So we welcome your feedback so that future meetings that are online can benefit from that as well.
Okay, so Chuck Claver and I organized a session on commissioning and science validation. So the goal of this session was to collect input from the science community on the observing strategy during commissioning. And in particular, we outlined a plan where the science community can provide more formal input on this, creating what we're calling commissioning notes. So all the ideas and the suggestions that were expressed in this hour-long session were tremendous. We really want to thank the science collaborations for all the thought that they put into this. And it's clear that Chuck and I will have some work to do digesting that, and then also giving some more guidance on what these commissioning notes might look like. But in particular, we're asking that this information be provided roughly November 2020, so that we can consider this as we're doing our planning, looking forward to the first light. If you go forward one slide, we snuck in one bonus slide here just to show some highlights of all the great input that we got from the science community. So again, thank you very much, and look for more information from Chuck and I in the near future about these commissioning notes.
All right. We actually ran 2 sessions identical to each other, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, to help the international InKind proposal teams get started on writing their proposals due this fall. So we did that to cover the time zones and double the time we had on addressing proposal teams' questions. They had a lot of questions. It was great. We had representatives from almost all of the teams there. It could actually be in all of them in the end. About 60 to 70 participants per session, and there was a lot of activity on Slack as we went through the material. We did a walkthrough of the feedback that the proposal teams have had so far from the Contribution Evaluation Committee, and also how to craft their proposal. The questions were great, as I say. The group is clearly very engaged. This is a large international collaboration in the making. And they're actively looking for ways to maximize the value that they bring to Rubin Observatory and LSST science, which I think is fantastic news for all of us. We saw some new ideas coming up for contributions in the session, and so we'll work with the teams on those in the coming weeks. So like I say, building a large international collaboration was the context for the discussion. and also will continue to be that for helping the proposal teams design their high-value synergistic in-kind contributions. So we've got our work cut out for us for the next 6 weeks. Bob and I and the international program coordinators at Ruben will be working closely with these teams to try and find ways to help them beyond the handbook and feedback we've given them so far. We'll try and find ways to take the pressure off as best we can and make sure that we end up with a really good high-value program in the end. So this was a great start this week. Thank you.
Hi, so on Wednesday morning, we had a session on community evaluation of the survey strategies. So we had a lot of pre-recorded information about the scheduler, the survey strategy, and the simulations we've done so far, it was really nice actually to be able to put this in pre-recorded presentations because we could target some of the presentations for people who are very familiar with the scheduler and what it's doing. So basically just give them an update since last year. Or we could have another talk that was longer and it was an introduction to the scheduler. So I thought this was actually a really nice way of being able to send out a lot of information without having to give people who already knew what was going on information that they didn't need. In the live session, we had feedback from the science collaborations. So they talked about what they were looking at with the survey strategy, what their evaluations looked like, and how they were doing on understanding how to rank things, or if they had things that they needed from the project. What we could see is that many metrics exist. Some key metrics are still in development, and there's been some very recent development of a lot of these. And then once the metric results are available, the big question is, what do you do with those metrics? So different collaborations, we're talking about different approaches, maybe ranking the different survey strategies, maybe giving like a red, yellow, green light to different survey strategies. What do you do about competing preferences within a collaboration? And I think all of these are really great things that the collaborations are starting to look at. And the SCOC, the Survey Cadence Optimization Committee, whose task is to do this across all of the science collaborations and across science that's not represented in a particular science collaboration, so the whole community. I think that this is a really good, it will have some useful insights for the SCOC as well.
Okay, so on Wednesday we had a session on community preparations for early science. This session was chaired by myself and Bob Blum, with Keith Bechtel and Chuck Claver helping us out as scribe and chat moderator respectively. So we organized this session really as a way to open up discussion with the wider community about early science as Ruben starts to plan and prepare for how we will do early science. We started out by presenting project plans for alert generation in year 1 and how we plan to ensure success with early science given the various possible commissioning scenarios that there might be. Just to remind people, early science is defined as any science enabled with Ruben data products prior to data release 1. And data release 1 is planned for approximately 12 months after the start of operations and will be based on the first 6 months of data. So we had a lot of excellent discussions with the community. We got some questions in advance and we had a lot of discussions throughout the session. The session was primarily set up as a Q&A. Some of the science collaborations have already been very proactive and have produced AAS research notes on opportunities for early science with Ruben, in particular the Solar System Science Collaboration, the TVS Science Collaboration, which I show here. So there will be some choices in early science that we will have to make. Do we prioritize sky coverage? Do we prioritize observing in all filters? And so there are many considerations to take into account when we think about how we're going to plan an early science program. And this input from the science collaborations, both through the research notes and through this session, is incredibly valuable. So as a first action, the pre-operations team has taken away from this session is to prioritize putting in place and communicating a timeline for decisions around early science. The science collaborations indicated to us that this is something that they need in order to put in grant proposals for doing early science. So that's where we will start, and over the next several months, you'll hear a lot more from us about plans for doing early science. Thank you.
Yeah, on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. we had a session on community alert brokers, and I co-chaired this session with Eric, and we really wanted to use this time to enable communications, discussion, question and answer between the project staff, especially the alert production team, the broker developer teams, and the broader science community. So we divided this session up into 2 Q&As, one primarily for brokers to ask the project questions about the broker selection process and the simulated alerts. And then the second Q&A was all about broker functionality. So that was a time for the brokers to present briefly the status of their brokers and how they're currently processing alerts and how users can get involved and interact with the services that they're providing. Since the participation in the PCW was ticking up well past 600 by that point, we made sure to include some primer information like what is an alert, what is a broker, some basic things about the prompt processing pipeline, which I'm showing here at the bottom of this slide. So whether you're new to alerts or you've been using them for a while and just want an update on what the brokers have been doing, we've got a lot of resources for you on this session's webpage, including a lot of pre-recorded presentations. Some are quite short, like little 4-minute introductions to the brokers by the broker teams, and a couple of demos too, where they take you through, for example, their website and show you how to set up a filter or how to search for alerts. So ZTF alerts in this case. So please do head on over to that session webpage and take a look at those resources. Thanks.
Hi. So the LSSTC Fundraising Forum was chaired by Jano Sokolowski, and we had about 37 attendees. After a brief introduction about what the corporation is and does, the group broke out into small meeting rooms to discuss specific ideas for our priorities going forward for the next few years. Overall, we had several broad themes that emerged. DEI was probably the most common thread throughout most of the discussion. And how do we implement and how do we bring to action those measures that will increase DEI? And a lot of people were concerned about the lack of representation of historically Black colleges and minority serving institutions. There was some agreement on going big by establishing an endowment to fund LSST science. That is something that we heard, again, a couple of groups thought that went through, to provide a permanent or semi-permanent pool of money to support the science over the next decade and beyond. Obviously, improved communications. It's something that the corporation is certainly working on, and making sure that the science community and the public at large hear more about the project and to have them engage in philanthropy a bit more. And increasing the number of possibilities for undergraduate research and engagement. That seemed to be a broad theme as well, that not only does it train the next generation or if you will, but it definitely provides a pipeline of people who will go out and support LSST going forward, even if they don't stay in the field. So it was a good discussion. Lots of interesting ideas came up, but overall those were the 4 takeaways that we had from that. And that's about it.
All right, so the low surface brightness science and robust sky estimation session was co-chaired by myself and Sugata Kaviraj, and we had a great session. It was very active, more than 100 participants. Big thank you to all of our speakers, especially those joining from all around the world in many different time zones. Thank you also to Melissa and Emily for helping format our session page. So the headline message here is that the significant depth of LSST really will be game-changing for LSB science. And to put that in context, one of the numbers I put up here is that 85% of galaxies down to 10 to the 7 in stellar mass are in the LSB regime. So there's a lot of potential for new science there. However, many data processing challenges remain, for example, sky subtraction. And I show on the right here an image from Cristina Martinez-Lombia showing some of the sky subtraction surrounding these two spiral galaxies. So in this case, removing quite a lot of the stellar halo in this instance. So our key takeaways. So I have a very nice quote here from another one of our speakers, Nushkia Chamba. She wrote this down, I really liked it. We've got to be aware and beware of the limits and failures of our data processing algorithms, which I think is very true. It's important for us to consider all the aspects of data reduction. For example, flat fielding as well has a big impact on what we do. One particular source of interest was intracluster light, which is identified as being particularly at risk for being subtracted away, because it's also very faint, but it's also sitting underneath a whole bunch of other galaxies that can contaminate your signal. Data stacking can help with that. The penultimate point here is that sky over subtraction that you see in the image there, it hampers not only LSB science, but it also hampers high surface brightness science. So even if you're not interested in LSB science, some of the outcomes from our discussions will be relevant to you because it'll help improve your own science as well. So just to finish by saying that the discussions will continue. They were great, and they'll continue in the Galaxy Science Collaboration and also in the LSB working groups. That's it. Thank you.
So also on Thursday afternoon, the EPO team hosted a session where we described the program that we're building in general for an overview, if you'd like to look at the recording to learn more about it. But in particular, we invited people who came to the session to try out some of these interactive data experiences that we're calling widgets that we've been building for the past year to try and encourage people to put their hands on Ruben data. So we sort of collected all of the different widgets that we've been building and combined them into the first link that you see here, but you can still go and click on and explore. And we're still interested in always getting feedback. So there's still the Slack channel, or we also have this Google form that you can fill out to give us feedback on your experience. And in general, these interactive experiences are currently part of full classroom investigations. So if you'd like to get a sense of what our formal education program looks like, links to those entire investigations are available on the session page that you can still go and click on for the next 6 months or so. And in general, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who came to the session. I feel like we had a lot of really great questions ranging from, just general philosophy about the program, details of the things that we're doing, and some really great feedback about the actual hands-on experiences themselves.
Yeah, once more, but it's in 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. So maybe 10 more minutes or 5. Will you come on?
Keith, you're unmuted.
I'm talking now.
Keith.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. So this is a slide of reviewing the diversity, equity, and inclusion session. So first, thank you everyone for participating in this and for going through the homeworks and thinking about this intentionally the entire week. As a reminder, our main goals were to establish a collective vision around the goal of maximizing the participation of Black scientists engaging with Ruben data, and recognizing the need for a second order change in order to meet that goal, and presenting a framework for how to think about that. We knew going in that 30 minutes for the breakout discussion was not going to be enough, and that certainly came through, that there were so many ideas and people were engaging with this material very seriously. And hopefully this gives a sense as to where we need to go and the importance of continuing these discussions. We're going to leave an anonymous Google form open with the more introspective prompts. So please continue to put in your responses there. And we know that we're going to need to do more in the future. Andres, Federica, and I are going to try to review the ideas that were shared today, and we want to try to organize some sort of follow-up meeting in the relatively near future to continue this discussion. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is create a topic that we can continue communicating. There's also a Slack channel in the LSST Slack workspace, hash inclusion. And then there's the session channel today. So let's keep on talking and move forward with this.
All right, this is Greg Medeski here. I'm going to be reporting on the session that we had earlier today that covered Stack Club and specifically the course that we put together for the Stack Club. It turns out that many people who want to work on some very specific aspects of Ruben data cannot really be satisfied using just catalogs, but need to get into the pixel data. And the idea behind the course, or actually behind Stack Club to begin with, was to get people familiar with the concept of pixel data. So we put together the course that lasted for 2 months, met once a week for 2 hours every Friday. And we had 6 sessions discussing different aspects of the science platform and the data. So Simon introduced us to the science platform. Then we had a lot more details from Yusra. Keith gave a very nice overview of data visualization. And then Andrew, image processing. Imran Hassan talked about source detection and measurement. And finally, Bryce talked about difference image analysis. The course concluded with 2 separate weeks when the participants of the course put together their final projects. As it turns out, there are probably about on the order of 20 participants in the course, but we had many more people who are interested in joining in. So the course probably will continue for next instance, I suspect at some point in the future. We haven't made any final decisions yet, but we thought that the course was sufficiently successful and sufficiently good for people to, as a vehicle to learn the stack, that it would be definitely worth doing this. So in the presentation earlier on today, we had also 3 of the students from the course, or actually 4 of the students from the course, present their work. There are many more projects than that. Sometimes people joined in teams to work on those projects. And again, the list of the different projects are on the lower left-hand side: transient and variable sources, surface photometry in the stack, and the blending of the images with Scarlet. I should mention that all the lectures from the course were recorded and they will be available the links are on the GitHub. So that's all I have. Thanks.
So also at 10:30 today, LSST ran a session on describing a new program that we're establishing or working to establish, and a grant that we've received to help design that program in a way that fosters diversity, equity, and inclusion. So most of our session was actually spent in an activity where we tried to turn people's thinking on its head. And instead of trying to think, how would this, what should we do to make this the best possible program? We spent half an hour thinking about what should we do to make the worst possible outcome from this project. Then we listed all those things that we would do. What would be the worst possible outcome? What would we need to do to produce that terrible outcome? And how do those relate to things that are commonly actually done in the astrophysics community? And then finally, what steps should we take to avoid doing those exact things that produce the unwanted outcome? So we had great participation, and people submitted notes from their sessions, which I haven't had time to digest yet, but we look forward to synthesizing those notes and taking them into account when actually designing this new program. We concluded by inviting everyone, and I'd like to invite everyone here, if you're interested in participating in designing an ambitious new program by the corporation in a way that fosters diversity, equity, and inclusion, please you can contact me or anyone at the corporation, and it will get to us. Thank you very much.
Should I stop my screen share or just keep going?
No, I think you're good to continue. I was going to screen share for Victor anyway. So Victor's got his very casual shirt on to close out this meeting.
Correct. So Melissa, I guess you're going to keep sharing, then I don't have to, and I'll just start talking. So once again, my name is Victor Kravendam, and I'm the project manager for Vera C. Ruben construction project. And I just wanted to, if you want to go ahead and advance the slide, take an opportunity to let you know that the project team continues to work hard and as safely as possible under the same difficult global conditions that we all share. And for this, what this means to us is we're dealing with sort of limited site access to many of our locations and the challenges of working remotely. Looking forward, just wanted to identify that we do have an annual status review coming up with the agencies in a couple weeks. And as we go into September, we're really hoping to increase the activities in many of our labs and sites. But just how, when, and where we can work safely is just the same dynamic landscape, and we just have to actively review and adopt to it. When we do have a good foothold in continuing the excellent progress that we have been making, then we will replan the project and communicate to the community just what the new completion schedule will be. If you want to advance the slide. We have accomplished a lot, and but there is exciting work that remains, and so and so too are there opportunities to join us, and these opportunities will continue. So please do visit our hiring site regularly if you are interested. We go ahead and slide again, and we'll go into this week, which has been awesome. We certainly did miss the interactions at the water cooler and the coffee stations, dinners, the bar and the pool, to name just a few. But I really wanted to thank the speakers and the facilitators for really creating and sharing really engaging materials. And we just heard the outbriefs. It's really been awesome what we've been able to do this week. On the next slide, I once again feel like we all need to thank the organizing committee. They developed this agenda, they curated the content, they did an incredible amount of work to make this an excellent interaction this week, and really a very successful project and community workshop. On the next slide, there's also countless other people that have helped, many volunteers, including the Zoom prep room and others that made this possible this week, and we want to thank them. And lastly, on the next slide, but not least, I want to really thank the 700 or so of you for participating. It's really that participation that makes it possible, and for sharing and engaging with all of us has really been a success this week. On the next slide, we do want to ask you to continue sharing, and that is to participate and take our survey. There's many ways you can get access to it, and we really do appreciate your feedback. So if you could take the time, that would be of great benefit to us going forward. On the next slide, as I think we saw in a couple of comments in the chat channel already in the last hour, we do want to identify that the Slack space that was created for this workshop was specific to the 2020 PCW. We will be preserving all of the chats for each of the sessions. However, because it was designed and developed for this meeting, we did want to identify that it will be decommissioned. The slide says this month, but as you've heard throughout, certainly today and even throughout the week, that there are follow-on conversations that we definitely want to continue. And so the this month comment is to make sure you don't procrastinate, and if you made new connections, that you solidify those connections with people individually. And just to let you know that it will not be forever, but that we will also transition to other forms of communication and other channels so that we can continue the good conversation and work that's been happening this week. And then on the last slide, I just wanted to point out that the 2021 Vera-C Ruben Project and Community Workshop is scheduled for next August, the 9th through the 13th. We will once again try to hold it in person and celebrate the 10th anniversary at the Ritz-Carlton on the 11th year, and invite you to keep an eye out for the details as those emerge. And with that, we can stop sharing. And I just really once again want to thank everybody for really the interest that you all have in the many aspects of the Vera-C Rubin Observatory and the planned legacy survey of space and time.
All right, I think that's it for this year then. Thanks, everyone.